Hello, my fellow gamers. Gamer Dude back once again, bringing you some more informative gaming news. But before we begin, you all know the routine, or at least I hope you do by now. If you are new to the channel, please make sure you smash that like button and drop me a subscribe, because it would just be your good deed of the day. Same applies if you are a returning viewer. Now then, additionally, before we get into the video, I would like to take a moment to address the passing of the iconic Tony Todd. Tony Todd was, of course, the voice of Venom in Marvel's Spider-Man 2. He's done various other iconic voice acting roles in his time. Most notably, he's done Call of Duty Black Ops. He's also done Dr. Rogers in Back 4 Blood. He was the voice of the Fallen in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. He was the iconic Candyman. He is just a legendary icon. He is just as legendary as Kevin Conroy's Batman. And it's a sad, sad day for the acting and Hollywood roles. Well, it's a sad day for Hollywood, basically. Now, anyway, with that out of the way, let's get right into the video. So, it appears that Sony and Warner Brothers are ditching live service games after multiple flops this year. And thank God! Oh my God, I'm so glad to hear this. This was joyous news to me. As a long-time AAA story-based gamer, this is joyous news to me. I can't tell you how sick and tired I am of games that require online connections. You know, if you're going to make a game, make a game. Don't release something that's half finished and when the player finishes it, we're met with, to be continued in Season 2. That's just lazy. Finish the goddamn game. So anyway, in this video, I'm going to be breaking down what I've discovered, what this means for the future of gaming, and why it's so important for the future of gaming. Now, given how much video games actually cost to make, publishers are always looking for ways to increase the odds of their games being a success. And this usually means sequels or licensed titles that can avoid the risk of creating something entirely new and different. Whenever there's a new genre or bandwagon, they also try and jump onto that in the hope it will be a shortcut to success, much like live service. For years now, developers have been trying to copy the success of Fortnite. Now, personally, I don't like Fortnite. I've been very vocal about my hatred of live service games, and Fortnite gave birth to that. I call Fortnite Shite Night. That's just to sum things up. But yeah, Fortnite is the only live service game that comes to mind that has actually been successful in the last decade. And that says quite a lot because, you know, it seems like this year, especially with games like Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, you could really tell they were trying to copy Fortnite. And if you're just going to copy something instead of create something original, then that's your mistake right there. You know, developers should stick to what they know, stick to what they can do. And, you know, it's an ongoing trend for most developers now to jump on the live service bandwagon because they think that's where all the money's at. Well, it's not. You know, releasing games with DLCs, that's been the thing since the PS3 came along. So just keep doing that. It's a tried and true method to keep earning money. But anyway, I digress. Now, back in the early 2000s, every publisher made their own MMO or rival World of Warcraft style game before eventually realizing that there just wasn't room in the market for more than a couple of these types of games. 20 years later, almost exactly the same thing is happening all over again with the live service trend. And as I mentioned earlier, they're just trying to chase the success of Fortnite. And after the failure of Suicide Squad, Concord, Multiverses, Marvel's Avengers, etc., it seems that big publishers are finally starting to give up and go back to the tried and true method of single-player story games. Warner Brothers have already admitted They have lost a massive $200 million on the disastrous Suicide Squad game. And now they've also revealed that Super Smash Bros. Style fighting game Multiverses, which was also a free-to-play live service game, has lost them another $100 million. So do you see the pattern emerging here? Do you see the trend emerging here? You know, it's not what people want. You know? Gamers don't want service games. I've been saying this all year. In fact, I've been saying this like for the past 10 years since Fortnite came out. Gamers do not want service games. I can only think of one, maybe two, that come to mind that I've actually enjoyed over the last 10 years. One of them being DC Universe Online. I did thoroughly enjoy that. I will admit I definitely enjoyed DC Universe Online. And Star Trek Online. Now, I only play Star Trek Online because I'm a big fan of Star Trek, and Star Trek Online is a live service game. But at least there's still a lot to do in Star Trek Online. You know, you've got to play back through missions to unlock this, that, and this, instead of a game like Fortnite where you're just jumping into a map filled with people and you have to kill them. Yeah, that's the trend that these devs are following, and it's just really not working. But digressing once again. Now, the push for live service titles, despite single-player game Hogwarts Legacy being by far Warner Brothers' biggest success in years, was driven by Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav, who has no gaming industry expertise whatsoever and is not the sort of person to admit mistakes in public. Now, I mentioned this on an Instagram post the other day regarding Batman Arkham Origins. I said something on the lines of, well, instead of remastering or remaking or re-releasing this masterpiece, they chose a trashy live service looter shooter. Clearly, nobody at Warner Brothers is a gamer. And diving into the research I've made for this video, this just goes and proves it. Zaslav has no business being in the gaming industry because he has no expertise in the area, in the field of it. So he just has no business being in it. Nevertheless, though, in the company's latest financial call, he said that Warner Brothers now intends to make less video games overall and concentrate on its movie franchises. I have a quote here from Zaslav. "We have 4 strong and profitable game franchises with loyal global fans. These are Hogwarts Legacy, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, and DC, in particular, Batman." Now, if that's hinting at a new Batman game, I'm actually glad now because it means it won't be a live service game. You know, given the disaster of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, why would they want to make a live service Batman game? Just wouldn't make sense. He goes on to say, "We are focusing our development efforts on those 4 core franchises with proven studios to improve our success ratio." So that's great. You know, he's not one to admit mistakes. Not many of us are, being human and all. But at least he's now admitted he was wrong about this. You know, it was the wrong way to go. He tried something new, it failed, and he's like, okay, I'm going to drop it. So I do kind of admire him for that. I've got to give him credit for that. Anyway, although there was no talk about Multiverses being shut down, that was certainly the implication, as well as Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. While emphasizing Batman over DC was no doubt a nod to the failure of Suicide Squad, and to a lesser extent, the Batmanless Gotham Knights, because Gotham Knights, let's not forget, was a Batman game without Batman. And, you know, you can't really have a Batman game without Batman. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Anyway, in fact, you know, it's been almost a decade now since a big budget non-VR Batman video game was actually produced, which seems rather baffling considering. You know, although the talk of using proven studios does increase the chances of Rocksteady Studios working on a new Batman title, please, Batman Beyond, give us Batman Beyond. I want Batman Beyond. We need Batman Beyond. If you're not going to make a movie of it or a TV show, please give us a game. Just please. And of course, Warner Brothers have admitted that Hogwarts Legacy 2 is already well into development. And while the reboot of Mortal Kombat 1 didn't fare as well as they'd hoped in recent entries, there's no doubt another one is underway as well. The only mystery right now at Warner Brothers might be planning for Game of Thrones, because the only Game of Thrones version of a game I've heard and seen and played was Telltale's. So if they're making an actual game of Game of Thrones, an actual story-based game where you don't make the choices, it's all pre-done in, you just play the game, I'm all for that. I would like to see that. But it's still a big mystery. Now, it might seem an obvious fit for Shadow of Mordor, developer Monolith Productions, but they're currently working on a single-player Wonder Woman game, which was announced back in 2021, but still hasn't been shown in public. So perhaps now they're making some alterations to it regarding this, fallback on live service stuff, which would be a brilliant idea in my opinion. Delay it if you have to. If you have to delay it to remove all the live service crap, do it. I'm all for that. Now, the bigger question is, has Sony given up on live service games? Well, over at Sony, there's also a reticence to admit that the focus on live service games was, in general, a big-ass mistake, especially as it's still unclear whose idea it was. Previous PlayStation boss Jim Ryan and current co-CEO Herman Hulst have said nothing. So it's anybody's game, really, as to whose idea it was to push the live service focus. Now, at one point, Sony was going to release 12 internally developed live service games by 2026, but so far they've only managed to launch one, Concord. And yeah, we all know how that turned out. It was literally the biggest flop in the company's history, and they could not wait to get it out of sight. I laughed hysterically about that, by the way. But yeah, Sony has never talked in public about where their plans are now, and as with Warner Brothers, no exec wants to admit when they're wrong. As I said, we're human. No one ever does want to admit when they're wrong. But a quote from their latest earnings results seemed to suggest a much more sensible approach. Here's a direct quote from Sony on that. "We intend to build on an optimum title portfolio during the current mid-range plan period that combines single-player games, emphasis on single-player games, by the way, which are our strength and which have a higher predictability of becoming hits due to our proven IP, with live service games that pursue upside while taking on a certain amount of risk upon release," said Senior Vice President for Finance at IR. And I'm not even going to pronounce his name because it's Japanese and I don't want to offend. So yeah, that shows initiative. They're not exactly admitting that they're wrong. There's nothing in there that says we were wrong, we're not going to do this again. But you can see where they're coming from with that statement. You can see that they're pulling away from it. They're realizing they made a mistake. They're realizing, well, maybe live service as a whole isn't the best idea. Maybe we can push maybe one game out a year instead of pushing our entire focus onto that. So yeah, this is exactly what we and most other outside observers have been saying all along. Me especially. I have been very vocal about my hatred of service games. Now, a good quality single-player game will almost certainly be a success to some degree, while a live service game is far less predictable, no matter how good or bad it might be. Now, the co-CEO of Sony said that lessons would be learned from Helldivers 2, which was developed externally but published by Sony, and Concord. They also implied that Bungie's Marathon would be Sony's next live service game, and that it would receive a lot more pre-release testing and betas than Concord did. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, perhaps this is their way of saying, well, instead of releasing all live service games all the time, we'll just release one a year, and maybe the next one that they're going to do, because it's already well into production, is this marathon one, which I've never actually even heard of because I don't follow service games. But another quote from the Sony head, he says here, "We intend to share the lessons learned from our successes and failures across our studios, including in the areas of title development management, as well as the process of continually adding expanded content and scaling the service after its release, so as to strengthen our development management system." So once again, he's not admitting he's wrong, but you can tell by the way that he says that he is admitting he's wrong by not admitting that he's wrong. So one can only surmise that it might have been his idea to push for live service. Now, Sony has released very few new single-player games in the last few years. PlayStation has been branded this year as Replay Station, or as I call it, Remake Station or Remaster Station. So, you can kind of see where something is going a bit wrong. Now, with nothing it considered to be a major title, except like a couple of remakes and remasters in this entire financial year, well, aside from Astro Bot, I suppose, they have only announced a couple of games, but they are actually coming out next year. Ghost of Yotei was a notable one, set for release in 2025, but that's been the first major first-party game announcement in over a year, and it's unclear how long the wait will be for another one. So what do you guys think about all this? Are you as overjoyed as I am that the live service gaming trend could be officially over and done with? Because I'll be honest, I've said before, if live service games are the future of gaming, then it's time to hang up the controller. I was ready to hang up the controller and just give up. I would have dug out the freaking Game Boy again if I had to. Now, this is joyous news. I am happy to hear this. I am happy that they've realized it was a mistake. They're not admitting it was a mistake, but they've realized it was a mistake and they're dialing back on it. They're going back to the tried and true methods of gaming. Single player, AAA games, that's all we need. If you want to add an online mode after the story, do that. Don't make it all online all the time. It's just not needed, because in today's economy, not everybody can afford the internet. So it's not fair to gamers who enjoy gaming but can't game because all games require an internet connection. It's just not fair. So yeah, let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Apologies for the length of this video. I had a lot to talk about in this video. There was a lot to find out regarding this subject. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. And once again, if you aren't new to the channel, please make sure you smash that like button and drop me a subscribe, because it would just be your good deed of the day. Same applies if you are a returning viewer. Stay tuned for more content from yours truly. This has been Gamer Dude. Happy gaming, and I will catch you all in the next one, guys.